Hi, folks. Sorry, technical issues. I couldn't figure out if I was live or not, so I had to call my assistant and see if you guys were able to see me. Um, Welcome. Happy Sunday. Oops, hold on. Um, Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us today for this live stream on Lesbian Bed Death. I always think to myself, every time I hear the word lesbian, the sentence lesbian bed death, I think to myself, well, this should just be called long-term relationship bed death, because it's so common. Whether you're in a lesbian relationship or a straight relationship, whatever kind of relationship you're in that's romantic, it impacts us over time. The longer we're in a relationship, and with obvious ebbs and flow of a relationship, we get impacted by changes in our desire. And another thing, I often think of is if you're sort of fed the same meal every day and there is no deviation from that meal and there aren't ways to kind of change it up, naturally we might get bored of that same meal. So it's important to think about how to change it up. How do you modify it in some way to make it more interesting and exciting? And there's definitely lots of things that you can do to reignite desire and interest in sex with your partner. And there are definitely things you can do that kind of can hinder or interfere with your desire and interest. So I'm realizing I don't know if we're using a new software to do the live stream. And I had thought that people could post and ask me questions, but I don't see any questions coming in, and I also don't see where the questions would come in anyway. So I'm going to just kind of talk about lesbian bed death and ways to kind of, if you find yourself in it, ways to reverse it, because it's completely treatable. It does not mean your relationship is doomed. In fact, I would tell yourself that this is completely normal. There is nothing wrong with our relationship. This is normal and expected in a long-term relationship. So right off the bat, I would say have a conversation with your partner and agree that, okay, here we are, right? We're struggling. A couple months has gone by, and, whether it be 2 months or 6 months, and, neither of you are really interested in having sex or being sexually intimate with each other, or one person isn't really that interested and the other one is, but then feels kind of rejected or uncomfortable because her partner isn't showing interest. And now over time, after you get rejected time and again, it's really hard to keep coming forward and trying to initiate, because it affects your self-esteem and it's kind of embarrassing and can be shaming. So sit down, have a conversation, and agree that, okay, here we are, and we've got to make some changes. And together we're going to work on it, and we're both committed to this relationship. We love each other. Let's do this. Take sex off the table for 30 days. That's it. From that day going forward, just take it off. And from there, you want to make sure that each of you are exercising at least 3 times a week, at least 30 minutes each time, because exercise fuels self-esteem. It'll make you feel better about yourself. Okay, questions are coming in. Hold on, let me move over here. Okay, let me finish my thought, and then I'll go to the questions. So you want to be exercising. Both of you want to be exercising. And, it's something you can sometimes do together and sometimes do apart. I think it's important to do things separate because, again, you want to build a little bit of tension, desire, interest. You want to miss each other. So you may not want to work out 3 days a week together. So you might choose to work out 1 day of those 3 days together. Let's see here. And again, remember, you're taking sex off the table. So there's no touching anywhere that you would be wearing, undergarments. So bra and underwear, no touching those areas. So you're really going to refrain. And what you're going to notice is early on, you're going to start to feel like when you're not allowed to do something, you really want it. So you want to do it. So resist that and keep, hanging in. And the other thing is, you're not allowed to be masturbating at all, because that's sort of, you would be getting your needs met, and that tension and desire isn't building up in the same way. So no masturbation. Oh my gosh, I know you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Frankie, why did you recommend this? This is terrible. But you'll see that after 30 days, you're going to feel really differently. That spark is going to get reignited, and you're going to really want to be touching each other. So the question that came in was, how do I keep the spark alive? So the way to keep a spark alive is to always make time for sex, even when you don't necessarily desire it. So there are going to be times when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, and you're like, oh, I just want to go to sleep, or I just want to play on the internet, or I just want to keep watching trash television. And I always say, act as if you just want to devour your partner. Just do it, even if it's not 100% there. You're not really 100% feeling it, because usually the feeling, the emotion will follow. So act as if you are really feeling it, and then once you're in it, you're going to be really happy that you engaged in this, in intimacy with your partner, in sex with your partner, when just 15 minutes ago you were engaged in a totally different activity. Oftentimes I hear that from people, which is like, I really didn't want it. I pushed myself, and I was so happy. I felt so connected to my partner once I did it, and we were in it, that I kick myself all the time, because I feel like we should be doing this more often, and it's unfortunate that we don't. So you've got to keep that in mind and give yourself the opportunity to have that experience. So push through that resistance of going, you know what I mean? I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, and I kind of just want to zone out, and it's going to be really hard for me to kind of give of myself in this way to you, my partner, and push through that and do the opposite. Do the opposite of what you feel like you need to do, and that will actually help you to keep the spark alive. You don't want to go for too long without having sex. The longer you go, it can be uncomfortable and awkward and feel really weird and funny to try to re-engage sexually. So you really want to keep that period of time, that duration in between periods of not having sex, as small as possible. So I always say, like, at minimum, you should be having sex once a week. And when I say sex, it should be varied. It shouldn't be the same way of engaging sexually every time. You should change up. It shouldn't always be in the bed. You can do it in the shower, you can do it on the floor, you can do it in the car, you can do it in the backyard, you can wherever, like in the closet, whatever you want to do, but change it up. And try to be really open about how you have sex. I don't know, some folks that I meet are really like sort of intimidated or uncomfortable with sex toys or bringing in even lube. I've worked with people where they're like, Dr. Frankie, I am not comfortable with using lube or a dildo or a vibrator. And the thing is, none of that stuff is going to replace anything. It actually just changes things up a little bit, gives you variety and variation, and it only can enhance things. So if you can expand your mind, take a deep breath, and set aside any sort of things you were taught as a kid or things you heard as a kid or, judgments or criticisms, and just try to be in the moment, and say to yourself, like, I'm just trying new things. I want to see if we can enhance our relationship and our sexual chemistry. And if it doesn't work and it feels more uncomfortable than not, you try it, you give it a shot, I would say at least 3 to 5 times, then fine. Then don't use it. But be open to trying different things. Let's see. Another question. What if I'm no longer attracted to my partner? So in a long-term relationship, that feeling is also very normal. And I think what happens is when we're around our partner all the time and, 1 year turns into 5 years, 5 years turns into 10 years, and so on, we unfortunately start to kind of take things for granted. a lot of the conversation ends up being like we hear the same stories. We're like, oh my gosh, is she really sharing the same exact story with me yet again? I've heard this story so many times. What happens is you end up knowing each other so well, there isn't much you don't know about one another, so it can start to feel boring. So you need to create new experiences and to keep things alive and exciting, to create different contexts and situations, to have different reactions, and different conversations with each other. So you want to make sure absolutely that you have date night once a week. And that's with kids or without kids. There needs to be date night once a week, like mandatory. And it's not like you have to do anything really crazy once a week. You could even go to a coffee shop and sit with each other and have a tea or a coffee. You could go and get a drink, a cocktail. But that's time for the two of you to connect. It's not time for you to invite anybody else in. Just the two of you being together, and talking about anything other than, things that, chores, business. If you have kids, talking about, school or programming or extracurricular activities or all that. All that has stress attached to it. So leave that aside and talk anything that you're interested in, even if it's a topic that you're really interested in but your partner doesn't necessarily participate in. To talk about something each of you are really into, like if one person is into CrossFit, another person is into running or swimming, talking about the differences there or how it's been for each of you. Or I'm using CrossFit because I'm into it, but just an example. You want to make sure not to be complaining or saying anything that would make your partner feel like she's being judged or criticized. Like, if she hasn't been doing the laundry or she's not folding the laundry the right way or something like that, where you just say, oh, you know what, I've been meaning to tell you, I'm wondering if you could try to have the laundry done by such and such date, or, it implies that she's not doing a good enough job. So you want to try also, back to the 30 days, you want to try to not be critical or complain about anything in the 30 days when you're trying to reignite chemistry and desire in the relationship. Those things are going to be there after 30 days. They're not going to go away. I mean, you've been with this person a long time. It's inevitable that those issues are still going to be there, and they need to be worked on continuously, because as you know, human behavior isn't easy to change, and there needs to be a lot of repetition, a lot of positive reinforcement. So when your partner does something really great, even if it's something small, you want to acknowledge it whenever possible. So don't go without acknowledging something positive that your partner did. Every week that should be happening. So let's see. So a couple other things. So I had mentioned that it's important for you to spend a little bit of time apart, and that could be, exercising 3 times a week, fueling your self-esteem, not being in those 30 days, not being critical or judgmental or complaining about something that isn't working right. I got another question. Can you talk more about creating tension in your relationship? How can I create more of that? So you kind of have to, you can't be sexual. You can be affectionate, but there is no touching her breast, touching her butt, none of that. That sort of gets put aside for 30 days. You want to not be masturbating or watching porn or anything like that during these 30 days. You want to make sure you're having quality time together. Every night there should be at least 30 minutes set aside to have a meal together, or if that's not possible, to have 30 minutes of like quality time together. No television, because I'm not against sitting together and watching TV or watching a movie. I actually think that's great, but there needs to be time to have verbal communication, looking at each other, like actually engaging 100% with each other. Another thing I forgot to mention is technology. So when you're at dinner on that date night, phones need to be turned off, or they need to be put on silent mode. If you have kids, you can set it so that it only rings when it's like the babysitter calling or the home calling. There's ways to do that with these smartphones these days, I've recently learned. I wish I knew that a few years ago. But no phones on the table, no texting. Put all that aside so your partner can really get your full attention, which they deserve to get. Most of the time, that's not what we get these days. We're getting pulled in so many directions. So you want to really show your partner that this time is important. They're important in everything they're sharing with you, and every moment that you have on this date night or for the 30 minutes that you have nightly together is hugely important to you. So tension is building because all of a sudden you're present, you're fueling your self-esteem, you're not being sexual with yourself or with your partner at all. You're also taking the pressure off of being intimate or sexual. That's another key element. When you agree for 30 days we're not going to be sexual, it takes the pressure off because both of you are aware, right, of like, oh my gosh, we are not desiring each other right now. Are we doomed? We have invested so much in this relationship. Does this mean that our relationship is in serious trouble? So that adds an element of pressure when you are supposed to be having sex, but yet you're not desiring each other in that way. So when you take it off the table, you can go, you can just like exhale and go, okay, I don't have to worry about that right now. What I need to worry about is really just reigniting things. So back to creating an attention. So by really getting controlled about how you spend your time together, how you refuel yourself, like you should be doing extracurricular activity also. Find something else that you have wanted to do, have been curious about that you haven't been doing, or haven't made time to do, and maybe find a way to make that happen on your own. Each of you do something on your own where you can bring new material, new conversation to the relationship. That's something else that's really important. And all the while, you're not allowed to really be sexual with each other. And that's going to automatically create a tension there. And also, like, I think that it's really common when you're in a long-term relationship for things that were really small in the beginning, that were irritants, that were tiny, that they become bigger irritants because they're not being corrected. And no matter how many times you've complained about it, it's not changed enough. Your partner hasn't made enough of an effort in your eyes, and it becomes more and more and more frustrating. But you're going to kind of turn a blind eye and not bring it up, not complain about it, which is going to be a relief to your partner. And she can exhale and be more present and available to you because she won't be defending herself or feeling defensive. Let's see, I got another question. Every time I initiate sex with my girlfriend, I get shot down. So this is really hard. I think everybody should take a moment to think about how hard it is to be vulnerable like that and to move towards your partner to initiate sex and be shot down. It's a huge blow. It's a blow to one's ego. It's a blow to one's self-confidence. It's hard. So you want to really think about how much you reject your partner's efforts in engaging with you sexually. It should be something that is done rarely. I think it's a moment where you've got to go, okay, I'm not really into doing this right now. And because I'm in a committed monogamous relationship, well, I'm assuming it's monogamous. I shouldn't actually even assume that. But because I'm in a committed relationship with my partner, I owe this to us to do this. Because definitely when you're in a monogamous relationship with your partner, you are the only person your partner's having sex with. So when you commit to monogamy with your partner, you're committing to being there to satisfy your partner, even in times when you're not really that into it or desiring it, because they are reserving themselves entirely for you. And the only person that can please them and is allowed to please them, right, aside from themselves, I hope, is you. So it's important to really kind of push through that resistance a little bit, and I promise you, and you can let me know, please, I want to hear it. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I promise you will be happy that you did push through that resistance and that you did say yes to her engaging you in sex, because I think that it makes you feel more connected, more loved, and most people say that they're happy that they said yes, even if they felt that they didn't want to initially. Um, and for the person who keeps getting shot down, I think it's important to really share your experience of what that's like. And also to remember that it's not necessarily something that you're doing or not doing right. I think that it's hard. We get stuck when we're not desiring our partner or we're not feeling sexual. There's a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of criticism around what that means. Like, is there something wrong with us because we're not feeling sexual? We're not desiring our partner. There's a lot of fear also involved in it because you worry that this means something even bigger, that there's something wrong with your relationship that might be really serious. So it's scary. Um, so I think having a real, heartfelt, non-critical, non-defensive conversation just about you really wanting to connect with your partner intimately, sexually, and how much this means to you and how hard it is to be rejected time and again, and what it is that you can maybe do differently in how you approach her, how you try to initiate. Maybe there's something about that first step and initiation that's making it, maybe, for example, I've heard this too, like maybe you're coming on too strong, for example. Maybe it just needs to start out with a massage. Maybe it just needs to start out with getting in the shower, taking a shower together, and washing each other. Something that's more a gentle entryway into something more sexual. Oh my gosh, did I really use up all the time already? So, folks, if you have any, hopefully you can submit questions too. But I want to encourage you, if you're enjoying this topic right now, I really want to encourage you to tune into Queer and Dear, which is my podcast that launched about 6 months ago. I have really interesting guests on the show. Recently, I had Tisha from Olivia on. I will be having Mariah from Club Skirts on in the next few months. I've had several women who identify as bisexual talking about their experience of being bisexual and why they identify as bisexual. I've had women on that came out later in life and talked about that experience. I've had a domestic violence expert talk about domestic violence in the queer community. So I have really interesting guests on that talk about really important topics that pertain to our community. It's really fun. It's 30 minutes. You can download it on iTunes. You can access it on Web Talk Radio. And you can also access it at on my website, www.littlegaybook.com. I also want to encourage you, if you're single and you're looking for somebody awesome, to get on my website and complete a confidential profile so that you can be in my matchmaking database that I search regularly for my matchmaking clients. And my firm, Little Gay Book, is national. And lastly, if you're really having troubles in your relationship, in terms of your, lesbian bed death situation, interest in your partner sexually, wondering if this is the right relationship for you, and so on, I do a lot of coaching nationally too. So I do coaching on Skype, on the phone, in person in my office, but I'm based in Oakland, California. So feel free to reach out to me directly. We'll keep doing these live streams. I love them. And I think that the feedback I've gotten from you guys is that it's really helpful. Let me see here. Another question. Question from Janice. Can you talk about how fun sex is? Or how fun sex can be? Yes. Sex is super fun. But you've got to make the effort to make it fun. It's not going to just be fun on its own, right? Over time. Sure, when you first start dating somebody and you're really into each other and all that dopamine and endorphins and adrenaline and oxytocin is just like flooding your brain. Yeah, there's not much that you really need to do other than be like on top of each other, smashed against each other, right? But over time, those chemicals, hormones, neurotransmitters aren't getting secreted as much. So we need to make more of an effort. And sex is super fun. Oh my gosh, what I would do if I was limited in terms of my ability to think about all of the ways in which to make sex interesting and fun. That's why I want to encourage you all to really step out of your comfort zone, get onto Good Vibrations website, read. There's tons of literature. They have books there that you can purchase. Walk into a sex shop that's a quality sex shop if you have one in your area. Go in there. Most of the people are very knowledgeable, are very comfortable talking about everything. I mean, I remember when I first came out and I went into one of those shops, I was mortified because they were so comfortable and I was so uncomfortable that my face was flushed. And I just couldn't believe how easy it was for them to talk about all of these things. And it really made it way more comfortable for me to realize that this was more my issue than anything. And I needed to figure out how to become more comfortable. So sex can be fun too without sex toys. That's the other thing. You just got to be creative and open. Be open. There's like the sky's the limit. There's so much you can do. And I can actually, if folks think that I should do a live stream on talking about how to make sex fun or what is fun about sex and all the ways that we can make sex more interesting, let me know and I'm happy to do a show of that nature. All right, one last question because I'm going over time. A question from music. What are the subtle, sure signs that another woman is attracted to you? Gosh, sure signs? Subtle sure signs? That's a good question. I always say, here's the thing. I think women can often be subtle in their expression of interest. So if you find that there's a woman like lingering around you, finding every reason to kind of just be in your space, that's a sign. A woman who is kind of every time you see her, she's initiating conversation and you're thinking, wow, this person is interesting. They keep making an effort to make conversation with me, but they're not flirting. That in itself is flirting. And I think also for ourselves, we're afraid of being rejected or assuming incorrectly, right? Assuming that this person's interested in us when they're actually not. So we're going to be really cautious about thinking that they might be interested. But if you're even having that thought, like, wait a minute, is this person interested in me? And then go, no, she can't. No, she's not interested. Right then and there, that's a cue that she probably is subtly flirting with you. So what I would do is I would reciprocate. So I would try the next time, if you're interested mutually, I would go and I would strike up conversation with her. Oh my gosh, you guys. Now all the questions are coming. Okay, this is the last question from Renee. My girlfriend always talks about sex after we're done. I find it embarrassing. Why does she do that? Wait a minute. Why? Wait, you have to tell me more, Renee. Can you really quick tell me more? After you're done, she wants to talk about it. Is it that she wants to talk about the sex that the two of you just had? She wants to hear about what your thoughts are, about the experience, what you liked, what you might want more of, maybe what didn't feel good. Was there too much pressure? Was it too soft? Was it too rough? Did you need it rougher? What are you talking about? But if I can't find that out from you, one, I would want to know from you, like, what is embarrassing about that? You wanna be as comfortable as possible talking about sex, especially with your partner. So what about that is making you uncomfortable? And then why does she do that? I'm not sure. She probably is doing that because she wants to understand you better, wants to deepen her intimacy with you, feels that you're not comfortable and wants you to be more comfortable. And the only way that we get more comfortable is through exposure. So maybe she just wants you to talk about it so that over time you'll get more comfortable. She just talks about what we just did. Okay, so I think so it's what I said a second ago, which is I think that she's probably trying to find out from you how you felt about it. Did it work for you? Did it feel good to you? Did it not feel good to you? And that's an opportunity for you to reinforce her or let her know that you want something to be different. We're all different. What feels good to her may not necessarily feel good to you. The kind of pressure she needs may not be the kind of pressure you need. Even what we do with each other is not necessarily what each of us necessarily wants to receive, right? What we give or receive, it's different. So say if you're not comfortable with something and you want it to be a little different, you can gently encourage her to do something a little bit differently. And maybe that's what's happening. She wants to hear from you that it felt good, that you're enjoying sex with her. And maybe she wants to share with you how it felt to her. So that's what I would think. And I want you to think about why you're embarrassed. All right, guys, this was super fun. Get on to Little Gay Book so you can, there's lots of videos coming out. I just shot like 25 Ask Dr. Frankie videos that are going to get released every few weeks coming up here. So definitely visit the website, complete a confidential profile. If you're in the United States, no matter where you live, we are trying to expand all over the country, hopefully eventually internationally. And Queer and Dear is always fun and interesting. And if there's a topic you want me to talk about on Queer and Dear, shoot me an email, let me know. If you're somebody that thinks that you have something really good to talk about that's pertinent to our community and you want to be a guest, let me know. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful Sunday.